Welcome to the Beth Yeshua Podcast. For more episodes like this, visit bethyeshua.org/media.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Beth Yeshua Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Rubenstein, and today I'm here with my mom. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Josh. Hello, I don't know your name. Hi, Josh.
Well, hi. How are you? We're going to do a podcast today, kind of a debrief of the UMJC National Conference, which we just went to. It was in Boston just about a week ago now at this point. And my mom has got like some quick things to hit, and then we've got a couple of like kind of maybe lengthier discussions about things from that conference. Once again, if you're interested in seeing us in addition to just listening to us, you can go to YouTube and do a search for Beth Yeshua SAC, S-A-C, for like Sacramento, so that's where we are. And you also could check us out on Spotify, because Spotify does the video podcasts as well. And if you're interested about our community, you can always go to bethyeshua.org, Y-E-S-H-U-A for Yeshua, bethyeshua.org. But yeah, let's go ahead and jump right in, because this is kind of a lot, and we're debriefing a big chunk of it. And I know that you had like a bunch of like boom, 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 boom kind of things you want people to know about the conference. Why don't you hit those first, Mom?
Well, and I guess these are shout outs, because one of the things that I have done for many years, in fact, I'm not quite sure how many years, we thought it might be as many as 10, that I've been the buddy of the conference. So I get to go into the kids ministry and interact with the kids, find out what they're learning, give them shekels. They get to spend them at the shekel shack, and it's just very cool, because I get to not only see what the kids are doing, but seeing all the people involved in coming and making the kids ministry a very effective part of the conference. And they call it a kids camp, and it really is.
There was a lot of kids too.
Oh, double what we'd had the year before. I think great. 46. I was in the classroom for the 4 and up through basically 12. And it was a large room. I wish it had been larger. I think they deserve larger. That's run by a woman who sets up the entire program, Andrea. But Stacy is her right-hand person in this age group. And her storytelling and hitting on points that really resonate with the kids is just right on. She's just an amazing person. And the other thing I saw about the kids ministry was every time I showed up, which was every session, I showed up for something, some part of it, so that they could, come and tell me what they were learning. But there were several rabbis who had come in. One of them was doing animal balloons with them. One of them was doing a craft. They were making Shabbat candles. And rabbis' wives had come in. And it was really very wonderful what the kids were getting from that. And just the way they dealt with the kids. I even learned, I've been a teacher for 40 years, and I learned some special ways of how Stacy, when she's sitting in a group talking to the kids, and one of them starts talking out or talking with their neighbor, and she says, I love the way Sarah Ruth is doing this, and I love the way Andrew is doing this. And so she doesn't tell them what the ones who are not performing well. She applauds the ones who are doing the right thing, and it immediately gets their attention. I loved it.
That's cool.
It was such
really
a loving atmosphere. So that was one.
Good teachers.
Oh, yeah.
Love it.
Absolutely. Anyway, that was a wonderful program, and I'm always honored to feel that I can be part of it. The other shout outs I wanted to do were to the look at music during this time, because I believe this is the first time they formed a klezmer band. And
no, I think that they've had it in the past, but this was way more organized.
Very organized. In fact, sheet music sent out ahead of time. In fact, they asked you to do your violin, and that was prohibitive
my sight
for
reading
your time
is
frames.
really weak right now.
Yeah.
Plus, there were a lot of other violinists and violists.
I know.
So
they had that bass covered.
They did not need me.
But it was fun. And then they did some, what was it? La Bamba. I mean, I don't know. They took it down.
Well, it was like a merengue or a samba.
A samba. It was
like
samba.
a samba.
That's what it was.
Piece. That's what it was.
Very cool. And I have to say, it was very cool to see the executive director out there dancing with his wife. Come on, that was cool.
Yeah.
But a lot of
energy.
energy.
And the vocalist that they had was that
Dina. Christina.
Oh my goodness, her voice was so good. It was so good.
She's
and she
so
was just
amazing.
singing. It was phenomenal.
It was really very special. And then
just to put that in context, they did that on the Erev Shabbat.
Right.
So like when we were
right.
having our Erev Shabbat meal, like
Yes.
after people were kind of like, done schmoozing and eating, that's when they stepped up and did it. It was great.
It was really, really wonderful. My only drawback was that I didn't get to visit with some of my friends, my lifelong friends who were part of that band, and they practiced all the time. But
Right.
at any rate, it was wonderful. And still within music, they had a screening of a documentary of the pioneers of Messianic worship, which I did not get to see, and I really regret that.
I'm sure it's available. I'm sure that we could try to find it.
Yes.
We'll try to put a link down in the show notes. So if people are interested in watching that or getting a hold of it, we'll
Yes.
try to link that so you can take a look at it. But yeah, they interviewed a bunch of different people, like,
Yes.
oh goodness, like Paul Wilbur and what are some
Marty
of the other ones?
Getz, I
Marty
think.
Getz and like
Yes.
just
And,
like really
Renee
cool.
Block, did they interview Renee Block? I
think so.
remember.
I don't know.
But a lot of them. And then though, we did get to have Paul Wilbur himself there in person for Saturday night and leading some of the old favorites, and it got everybody dancing, just remembering the old things. And then it was fun because some of the newer people to the movement have their own dances that they're doing. So it was just really a lot of fun. And yes, I did participate in my tennis shoes. I had just been out in my tennis shoes and I was still in them, and I did not fall down. Praise God.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But
You had your dancing shoes on.
That was wonderful. And then that same night, we had Eitan speaking, and his words are always provoking us to live a better life, to live a more Yeshua-led life.
For those who don't know, we're not really going to say Eitan's last name. That's an intentional choice. He helps lead a whole like collective of Messianic congregations in the land of Israel, and one of our family friends from years and years
50
and years.
years, we figured
50
out.
years, yeah.
Yes.
So really like family. He and his family are like our family. When we went to go put in our Aliyah paperwork, we stayed with their son who lives nearby. So anyways, Eitan is not just a voice within our family, but like a voice for the movement, really,
Yes.
especially when it comes to Israel. So I wasn't there. I had to fly back before that. Can you tell me a little bit about what he hit on? Do you remember what it was like? What was the general tone?
Well, I think one of the things it says in the program, it says our entire Messianic movement, Israel and the Jewish people worldwide, are being intensely challenged today, and we will face honestly the historic, prophetic moment we find ourselves in. Where can we find the inspiration, the vision, courage, and compassion to rise to the occasion in front of us? That was kind of the text, the theme of what he spoke about. But Eitan is so engaging. He's always able to capture the hearts of people and express to them where he's at. He is probably one of the most humble people I've ever met and have known. I'm sure he doesn't even understand how charismatic he is, but his words were inspiring and got really people off their feet. Got people to think that there is something that we need to be about, and it needs to be about the support of Israel primarily, and supporting the people in the land, and bringing more people to the land, bringing Messianic believers to the land, and praying for a time when there will be a more open door for Messianic believers to come back to their land. To be cut out of your own land because your belief is that the Messiah has already come. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But and then
This
that
might be a
leads
good
me-
time
yeah.
to really insert just briefly that we had conversations with several of the Israelis, and they shared with us, obviously, the things that have been hard since October 7th, but then they also shared just kind of the general difficulty. We were talking with them about the lack of continuity from generation to generation. A lot of younger parts of the generation of certainly the second generation, so like my generation, are not in leadership. They're not part of the Messianic movement. And some of them have walked away entirely from Yeshua
That's
faith,
right.
from God belief at all.
That's right.
And they were talking about the real struggles that they have in Israel also in different ways, right? But many of them, it's when their young people go off to do their time in the IDF. and sometimes they get wooed by the more modern Orthodox and that sort of like halakhic expression of their faith. Some of them by the secular humanism, they get pulled into it. Some just by the suffering, especially now because they have their friend dying. Their friends are dying in combat. And so for those of you who are prayer warriors, we just encourage you to pray for that younger generation in Israel, just as you would for the younger generation of Messianic Jews in the United States. The enemy does not like our movement, deeply opposes it, and is going to use anything he can to get young people away from God, away from Yeshua.
Actually, Josh, that brings me to your message this last Shabbat. I was out with the kids for most of it, but I was there toward the end when you were challenging, and that when God is speaking about the future and the prophetic times coming, he's really talking about Israel. He's not really even talking about the United States. Yep. And I felt like you were making some profound statements there that what is it that we are to be about in the diaspora? Number one, I think it's that we're sending people back. We need to be supporting the Ezekiel return. That's right. But at the same time, what do you feel that the Messianic community can do toward bringing about, doing our part toward what God is working in his prophecies for his people? And for the return of Messiah.
I think, first of all, we have to shift our focus away from our own communities, from the United States, and we do have to realize, it's interesting. First Fruits of Zion, I have a mixed relationship with them. I love parts of what they're doing, and I really love what they've come to stand for.
Love a lot of the people there.
And I love a lot of the people, but I do struggle sometimes with their focus on Torah observance because I think it can waylay sometimes, especially non-Jewish people in the movement. But their whole focus coming up is on the book of Revelation. That's what their whole new Torah study is going to be about in this next season. And I was looking at some of their kind of like little previews on the social media. I'd encourage you guys to look at some of that. And one of the things that they started talking about immediately was the whole idea of the rapture. And immediately what they did was they divorced it from the context of like all these, Gentile biblical scholars trying to figure out what the rapture is about. And they tied it right back into the idea, the very Jewish idea of the resurrection of the dead. It's just the resurrection of the dead. Right? It's the resurrection of the dead, which has been in this deeply Jewish thing for quite some time, that when Messiah comes, the dead will be raptured or rise from the dead to basically face judgment, right? To stand before the throne of God to give an account for their lives. And so it's just like this, like pulling the book of Revelation out of this Gentile Western Hemisphere thinking into like, this is what it actually meant for Jewish people and apocalyptic literature in general. So I thought that was fascinating. So yeah, we need to stop thinking that the future of Messianic Judaism is in California, because it's certainly not. The future of Messianic Judaism is in Israel. The future of our people is in Israel. Being outside of the land is a curse. And so we actually, it's an actual curse, right, in Torah. That's what Moses even said. He said, you'll be driven out of the land, if you don't obey. And we didn't obey, and we were driven out of the land. So we do need to pray for God to open up the doors so that we were blocked. We as believers in Yeshua, our family personally was blocked from making Aliyah. We need to pray that those doors would open up, that there would be real breakthrough in the courts and in the hearts and minds of the Jewish people in Israel. And then we also need to really, I think, when we have conversations with Jewish people here in the United States, especially young people, we need to try to connect them to the land. So much of what I love about what Rabbi Glibi does. Rabbi Glibi says, listen, if you are Jewish enough to make Aliyah, I want to take you on basically a birthright trip, a Taglit trip, because we don't get to do Taglit as believers because you're blocked if they find out that you're a believer in Yeshua. And so as a young person, your whole birthright of being able to go and explore the land is taken from you. And so he takes teenagers. I actually talked to a teen that he had taken in his last trip, and that teen was on fire for Israel, was excited about his land. And we need to do that. We need to tell our young people that this is not the place for you. This is not a place to hang out. you should try. You should try to make Aliyah as diligently and as carefully as you possibly can. And there need to be more of us that are really wrestling through that. We're in a land of comfort, especially here in the United States. And so it's hard for us to leave that, but we need to be focused on the land that is the future. So even when I have conversations with young couples that are wanting to get married, I have them talk about, what does this mean for our kids, that we're raising Jewish kids, and do we need to wrestle through Aliyah and the call of the Jewish people to be in Israel? That's as far as premarital counseling goes, that's a weird one. Not a lot of people have conversations about, should we pick up our entire family and move and change the destiny of our entire family?
But that's the conversation that needs to happen. The other thing it makes me think of is, what is our call then in the diaspora? What is it that we should be about? What can help promote that? And I think we've been hearing that call and focusing on that call when we're helping people understand their identity. So why Messianic congregations? Because where else can you try to reinforce that your identity is important to God? You have a covenant relationship with God. And as we've said before, we tend to deal a lot with mixed marriages. So there's a lot of confusion. And I could go either direction. Maybe I'm a Jew, maybe I'm not a Jew. And so I think that has to be what we should be about in Sacramento and every place where there are Messianic congregations, which, that whole identity thing is something that makes me think about what we did and did not wrestle with when we were at that delegates meeting. And do you want to branch into that a little bit?
Yeah. Do you feel like you kind of hit all your other big points?
I felt like, I just wanted to give some kudos and some shout outs to some of the things that I felt went really well and were important. I didn't mention, though, getting to visit again with lifelong friends is just absolutely essential. Literally walking back into those conversations that we were in the middle of last year at the conference and just walking right back in again. But then updating was absolutely wonderful. Loved it.
I think that's a big part of what it means to go to the conference. It was expensive this year, it being in Boston. I wasn't able to take my family. I was really only able to go because of generous donations from people in our congregation that allowed me to go. So thank you for any of you who donated to that. That was a real blessing because I got to have conversations with Rabbi Joshua. I got to talk with him about protest literature in Torah and how powerful that was for him during a deep spiritual struggle that he had recently, and how the protest literature of King David was what really helped Rabbi Rube. It was what helped him really realize that he could be real with God. And I never would have had that conversation. And there's so many of those conversations that happen. Honestly, I don't go to a ton of the programming. I schedule and I sit down and I have conversations with people. And I had so many conversations with people from the exec board and individual rabbis. And it was really wonderful. It really is.
And that's why it's important that your family is there, so that the wives and the children can make those connections again too. And then back to, where are our kids going to find those people that they might want to marry?
Totally.
Hello. I mean,
I think about that because, this young man, for example, that's so excited about Israel, was telling me about, I know your kids. And I was like, how? And he's like, well, from Camp Orlador. So they went to this camp last year, the same camp that they're at right now. And so he met Eliana, he met Lev. And so those sorts of connections and them living together for almost 2 weeks, man, especially in Messianic Judaism, where there's such a tenuous hold sometimes to what real community can feel like on a local level. It's really powerful to have them experience these bigger things.
Yes, absolutely. Hey, and by the way, when your two get back, it might be nice to have them on the podcast to find out how it was for them. I would really like to know.
That actually is a great idea.
Even the nitty gritty, even the getting poison ivy and being forced to sleep outside the tent.
Forced to sleep outside the tent.
Happened
which
last
happened
year
to
for
Lev
one of
last
you.
year, of course. Of course, it would be Lev too.
And he was fine with it.
I was like, it was a great adventure. I almost died. I felt terrible. It was fantastic. I was like,
and it was raining.
Okay.
And it was raining.
And it was raining. And there were mosquitoes all around him all night, waking him up, buzzing in his ear. Because he didn't have a mosquito net or anything like that. Anyway, because of course he wouldn't.
I think let's jot that one down. Let's get them on.
Yeah. No, that would be actually really good.
Yeah.
Because especially Camp Orlador, there's a real focus on, I would say it's a more observant community than we are in our home community. And so there's a real focus on showing kids how to lay tefillin and, how to do an Erev Shabbat celebration rather than just kind of the shorter prayers from the bencher that we do in our own home on a Friday night, and like a long Torah service with a lot of liturgical prayers that we don't necessarily do in our community, and other kids may not experience in their communities. So anyways, to any of you who are listening, it's run by Rabbi Nathan, who actually is from Boston, or the Boston area. And it is a really powerful camp, and you should send your Jewish kids because they will have a deeper connection to their Jewish identity and to God. He has a powerful ministry and really listens to the Ruach, to the Holy Spirit. He's an amazing guy. Highly recommend it. I can't recommend it enough. Save your shekels. Yeah. It's expensive. Save your shekels.
But the thing is that even though he's in the Boston area, the camp is in the Poconos in the New York
now
area.
It is.
Yeah, now
pre-COVID, there were some issues, but COVID changed a lot of things, not the least of which, and this is total rabbit trail. He told me that it was very easy for them to rent Jewish space at a Jewish camp before COVID. There was lots of availability, and people didn't have any issue with them being messianic, and they would help lead Havdalah and all kinds of stuff. But after COVID, there was such a demand for kids to go to camp that the Jewish camps don't have room anymore to rent space out because they are full. Families after COVID are get these kids out of the house, let them experience nature, let them get out into the woods and get mosquito bites, go.
And let them get to know each other.
Yeah, which I think is great.
Absolutely.
If the backlash of COVID is more kids going to camp and experiencing nature and being together, fantastic.
Amen.
But yeah, so we've got two big things to discuss. One, and I mean, they're not that big. We had a much bigger one to discuss last year when it came to ordination of women as rabbis. But we have a thing from the delegates meeting. And then we have a thing from a seminar that you went to called Encountering the Anusim, which is about the descendants from, the Spanish Inquisition who came across from Spain, from Portugal, from Italy into Brazil, into Mexico and New Mexico. And so which of these do you want to go into first?
I think we kind of touched on the beginning of identity with the delegates meeting. So maybe we should talk about that, because my concern there was that we encountered this last year at the delegates meeting where there were organizations. I'm not even going to call them congregations. I'm not sure exactly what they would call themselves, but I think they were calling themselves congregations. But they want to be affiliated with UMJC, but they're very clearly Hebrew roots, which to define that, it's more the roots of the faith and following everything that Torah says is for everyone who believes. It's not, that when God is speaking to people, he's not necessarily singling somebody out and saying, hey, you Gentile do this, you Jew do that, but he does. He very much, the laying of wearing tzitzit. He said, you Jewish people, you should do this unto all your generations. And so there's been a lot of confusion. Well, and to be clear,
even beyond that, Hebrew roots can also mean that they reject those who are actually born of Jewish descent and call them apostate Jews. And they believe that anybody who actually follows Torah or keeps Torah, which is so weird because they actually usually end up with an Orthodox observance, a Jewish normative Orthodox observance as their gold standard. And so anybody who follows that, Jew or Gentile, is a true Jew in their heart. And then those who are not following to that level of observance are not Jews. They're apostate Jews at best. So it's even more nefarious than removing distinction. It's actually a wholesale usurpation of Jewish identity, and it's poisonous in my opinion. But
it wasn't dealt with. I mean, it was brought up last year. But it wasn't really, nobody was talking about it this year, and those people had 1 year as provisional there were about 10 groups, and they had 1 year as provincials, and then at the end of that time, they're fully brought in, or we've had to vote whether or not to bring them fully in.
So that's actually my first question to you is last year I wasn't there.
Right.
Did it actually get brought up? Like, was there a conversation about, because we found two communities in particular that literally had the phrase Hebraic roots on their website. Did that get brought up last year?
Yes, it did. But it was not given a lot of credibility, in my opinion. And I didn't feel like I had a strong enough voice. I was one of the stronger voices on whether or not women should be, the main spiritual leader of a congregation, et cetera. And I don't know if I was feeling a little intimidated, but I really wanted your voice there because I wanted them to hear it from another generation too. And so,
well, who brought it up last year?
Well, it would be more Kirk Glebe types. I mean, those are the ones who are.
Did he actually stand up and say,
my
"Hey,
memory
I have
was
concerns about"?
He did say some things last year. Yes, and had somebody not said something, I would have said something, but it was more brought up of just who is this and why do they need to be affiliated with us? What is what do they gain for that? And the other thing is this: we as a full.
What do we gain? As the UMJC?
Well, see, that's my consideration. We pay 2% of all the money that comes into us. As dues to the UMJC. People who have a lesser status and being more associate members, they pay 1%. They were just asking those people to pay like a couple of $100 a year type thing, is my understanding. And I thought, what? To have that affiliation, and they get full use of the conferences, et cetera, too.
Right.
So
let's take a step back and define those three categories because there are a lot of people maybe listening, or all 12 of the people listening. Although we did find out that some people are listening. But you may not understand the different ways that communities can attach to the UMJC for that kind of like official recognition as either full members, associate members, or affiliate status.
Right.
Full members, you have to have a minyan. You have to have at least 10 Jewish people that are members of your community. And then, yes, you have to pay, I believe it's 2% of all of the tithes and offerings that come into your community as dues to the UMJC. An associate congregation, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's five Jewish people as members.
I don't know if it was even. I think it is something like that because
I think it's like a Hetzi minyan. It's like a half minyan, right? I think it's 5 Jewish people that are members, and then it's 1% of the tithes and offerings that come in. So it's like half of what a full community would get. A full community gets 2 votes at the delegates meeting.
Correct.
An associate gets 1 vote, and then there's this new status, affiliate status, and almost every congregation or group that we were bringing in for the last 2 years was coming in under affiliate. Like 90% of the ones that I saw were coming in as affiliate rather than associate or full. So affiliate, they have full use of the conference. They also can say that they are affiliated with the UMJC on their website, and make no mistake, that does have an effect for people who are paying attention, because people are paying attention and agree with like the statement of faith of the UMJC, for example, which really needs to be way more prominent on the UMJC's website.
I
agree. If you're in charge of the UMJC website, please put that up. Like, don't hide the ball. Like, be right up front about who we are. We have great standards. Put them out there for people to see. But they get to put we are affiliate members of the UMJC on their website, and that is using the good name of all the community of the UMJC to endorse those communities, right? And so it means something when somebody comes in, even as an affiliate, even if they're paying like a couple $100 a year, because it is, are they seen as legitimate and valid by the Union of Messianic Jewish Congregations?
And I think that's exactly
there's a vetting process, right? And we learned more about that this year. But I think that to me is the big issue that you were bringing up, which is it means something. It means something for this community. There's one in particular that was like very clearly like Hebrew roots, even in some of the visuals that were on their website. It means something that they are affiliates of the UMJC.
Well, and speaking of that group, that community, their leader shows up on the website as wearing a talit, and she's not Jewish.
Right.
So, if a man or a woman wears a talit that's Jewish, we applaud that. But why would a non-Jewish person wear a talit and that still was on the website even at this year. Evidently, one of our rabbis had been working with this person and had worked out some of the, the kinks, so to speak, of the verbiage of. But see, to me, the verbiage is the result of what's in the heart. If her heart is that we are Hebrew roots and we are all the things you just explained about Hebrew roots, then whether she's wearing a talit or not should not be the issue. It's really, we're changing the appearance. But what did we change? Anything fundamental?
And to be fair, okay, so I'll try to give an overview really quick. So they were saying, hey, these 10 communities or like 15 communities that came in last year under provisional status, we now want to vote for them to be full affiliate or full associate. I think one of them maybe was like a full congregation also, right? So it was going to be a blanket vote saying thumbs up or thumbs down to the entire list.
Literally, we had a thumbs up and thumbs down, right?
Yeah, literally. We had thumbs up and thumbs down signs for voting this year, which I was like, okay. I think it's fine for us to hold up hands, but there's this, first of all, like if you disagree, which I did with one in particular, and there was another one also, although that one was just put on provisional status for the next year, but there was this one community and their website was a mess. And it was, to me, like you were saying, where is their heart? Because I also went and looked at some of the YouTube videos from that community of their teachings. And I was like, this is not Messianic Judaism. Like this is essentially one law, Hebraic roots-ish sort of stuff, right? Like this is...
Well, and they even used the word Hebraic roots initially.
On their website originally, right. And so even though this person had been going through King's University's Masters of Divinity program in Messianic Jewish Studies and was getting oriented through that, and even though she's being mentored personally by a rabbi that we love and trust deeply, there were still issues on that website. And I'm like, so if she puts like affiliate of the UMJC right next to a picture of her wearing a talit, which is very one law, just so you guys know, like the reason we have a problem with that is because it erases distinction, a distinction that we believe that God has placed. And it's not like about worth or value. We're not saying that like a woman can't wear a talit. In our community, women who are Jewish and bat mitzvah wear a talit. It's not about that. It's not about value. It's not about whether or not she can lead a community as a woman. It's about a usurpation of identity. And that confusion being endorsed by the UMJC is a problem because we are a UMJC congregation. And when people come to us who are one law, we say, thank you for your interest, but this is not the place for you.
This is not the place for you. Yeah.
This is Messianic Judaism. This is not one law. This is not Hebraic roots. This is not Ephraimite. This is not sacred name. We're not those things. So when it came time to vote, I, in good conscience, couldn't. I couldn't vote for the entire list thumbs up, even though like all the rest of them, I'd looked at their websites and I was fine with them. Like, okay. In fact, like most of them were like from Ukraine and stuff. So like they don't even have websites, so like you're just taking the word of the person that met with them, the regional director in Ukraine, who has interviewed all these people and knows their hearts. And like in the Ukraine, man, it's like completely different. Like you don't have people pretending to be Jews in the Ukraine, right? Like it's just like they're just trying to help poor Jewish people like live. And it's not like this where it's like some sort of new expression of Christianity. It's not like that. And so like I was like, yeah, I'm cool with all those except for this one. And so I rose up as a point of clarification and said, I'm sorry, is this a vote on the entire list? Thumbs up, thumbs down? Because I have a problem with one of these communities very specifically. And so they said, what? Who? And so I brought up the name. I'm not going to do it now. I brought up the name. And I said, this is all the issues that I saw on the website. And I didn't even talk about the videos that I had watched, which clearly indicated a heart that was like, I don't know how aligned. It didn't seem very aligned with Messianic Judaism. Immediately, our current executive director got involved and wanted to have a forceful interaction with me about like, oh, but we believe in this person. She's in the Master's Divinity program. She was vetted by them. That should be enough. And I'm like, it's not.
And also,
words have
she
meaning.
is a medical doctor. I think that was
brought
frankly,
that up, and I was like, I don't care.
Who cares?
Like, lots of medical doctors could be one law or Ephraimite or whatever.
right.
Like they could have hearts so far from us. And it's interesting because afterwards I even said, like, the vetting process for King's University is not our vetting process.
That's right.
And King's University attaching their name to a person versus us attaching our name to a community is a different thing entirely. And there was pushback back and forth. In fact, Russ got involved. He's like, hey, you know, like according to the rules of Parliament, we shouldn't be doing this. Like there shouldn't be like a back and forth. And I was like, fine. I was like, but I want a separate vote on this community because they don't align with our values. And like, well, it's about semantics. And I was like, no, it's not. Hebraic roots may not mean something to you, but to those of us in body ministry in the United States, just trying to run a messianic congregation, Hebraic roots definitely has a meaning. Like, absolutely. End of story, period. And I think that's what you kind of wanted to get about in your notes, right? Is that, like, was nobody else looking at this website? Was nobody else going to raise this issue? Was nobody else going to talk about the fact that we are not Hebraic roots? Like, are we afraid of saying that? Are we afraid of saying we're not Hebraic roots? We are not one law. We are not Ephraimite. We are not like two house. Like, and I think that for me was like, what's happening? And I had like half a dozen people come up afterwards and be like, dude, thank you. Like they had not even looked at the websites.
Really?
You know, we have a year. We're busy. All of us have way too much to do. The only reason, honestly, we looked at it, right, is because we were looking for podcast material. And so we like looked at it, and so like we're like, hey, this is a problem. And so since then, I've been like searching all of them because I'm like, I want to know if there's problems.
I know.
And so that was the only reason we had looked at it. But I'm curious what your thoughts are. Like, do you feel, because like a lot of these rabbis are your friends for years and years and years, I don't think any of them would call themselves one law or Hebraic roots or Ephraimite or any of that, right? So in your opinion, where's that disconnect coming from?
I don't know if it's this big push for inclusivity. I mean, it's like in the effort to not exclude anybody, we bring everybody in. And frankly, I saw this with your dad, even at the beginnings of Beth Yeshua. Like, okay, so people are coming in and everybody's studying Hebrew together, and Jew and Gentile studying Hebrew. Praise God. It was wonderful. But when it came down to who should have a bar or bat mitzvah, it got a little murky. And we've even had people who came to us who studied Hebrew and then actually participated in a bar or bat mitzvah with us, alleging that they were Jewish when they really weren't, but we didn't do anything about it. We didn't realize. I mean, who would lie about that? Frankly, we didn't even ask for proof. But we even, speaking of birthright, which you spoke about earlier, we had somebody who came to us for a bat mitzvah, and she ended up using that as her credentials to get on a birthright trip to Israel.
And she was not Jewish.
She's not even Jewish. But we didn't know that. And frankly, that was one from the former Soviet Union, which is more difficult to prove. Right. And so,
where do you think that heart was? Like, do you think that the heart was like one law, or was the heart like my family is actually Jewish from the former Soviet Union? Right. And this is almost the conversation we're going to have about the Anusim in a second, which is like when you have a person that's trying to reconnect with a real Jewish root, but there is no physical evidence.
Right.
What kind of process and due diligence do we do as a community to actually like, and I've heard from multiple leaders saying, well, I don't want to be the Jew police. If a person says they're a Jew, fine, they're a Jew. Well, the problem is, man, I've had a lot of people say that they're Jews who are not. A lot.
We've had ones, that God spoke to them when they went to the Jordan River, specifically.
Yes. And with one law and like Hebraic roots and all this other stuff, it's just getting more prevalent where people will show up dressed like Jews and just like, well, of course I'm a Jew. Look how I'm dressed. And it's like, yeah, I could dress like that too, man. Like that doesn't make you Jewish. So like that's why we moved to a very concrete halakha within our community. Mm-hmm. Do you think other communities have a very concrete, we are going to hold you to it halakha for Jewish identity? But here's another question.
I think it's a mixed bag for sure.
Right. Do you think it means anything within public worship? So we associated ours with a cost. So
that's right.
Jewish people make Aliyah to Torah and read Torah portions because theirs is the Torah, says Paul, right? It's ours to keep. It's ours to uphold. And so that's something that we do not allow people who are, not Jewish to do. Is there a cost, do you think, within most congregations of the UMJC? How would we know? I mean, we're speculating, but I'm wondering, do you know leaders that in your conversations with them have been as concrete and specific as we have in Beth Yeshua?
Well, I certainly know of a couple. And one of them, the rabbi for years, has met people coming in the door and said, "Are you Jewish?" Right there. "No, we're not." And said, "Well, just to let you know, you're welcome to visit today, but this is not your home. This is," and now, mixed marriages is a different thing because obviously many of our families are mixed marriages.
I know who you're talking about.
But it's somebody, So it's more about if keeping that identity and understanding that identity. For us, it means a lot. Now, maybe something has crept in, but I get the impression when I see other people's websites within the union that a lot of people are walking around in talits, and I don't know if they have done anything to prove they're Jewish, but I think the Anusim conversation, which we can have after this, is how do you prove it? Basically, if you do not have a ship's manifest, which not everybody is going to have, because the ship's manifest of that era would have said you're Hebrew or Jewish or something, and it was derogatory. Okay, so if you have that for one grandparent, you're considered to be Jewish by Israel, so we accept that as proof also. So how do you deal with the people who are from the former Soviet Union who have not been allowed to practice any faith of any kind? So that is kind of like an area. How do they prove that? And if they come in, we have people in our own congregation who have been with us since the beginning who cannot prove that. But we love and admire and know this person. We know that her mother and father were both Jewish, how they dealt with that living in the Ukraine. And we just kind of had to deal with it on that basis. Now, that person is never asked to do anything that looks like that points out the fact that she is Jewish. That's not been a big deal to her. She is just a Jewish person. Okay,
well, and that's an interesting one because many times the people who are not Jewish are the ones that want to read from the Torah. Want to read from the Torah.
In fact, we have 3 people right now in our congregation, 2 of whom who have met with you, one has a ship's manifest, and she was able to prove that, and she's made an adult aliyah, essentially a bat mitzvah, which she never got to do as a kid. And we've had another one recently whose people came through that whole path that you talked about after the Spanish Inquisition, came through Portugal, Brazil, etc., but had proof of one Jewish grandparent. But if somebody cannot prove that one Jewish grandparent, it makes it difficult. So on one hand, I don't want to see them shut out, but how do we then? I want to see us be able to help them find that identity if it's real. But on the other hand, what do we say to people who can't prove it? If they've got an inkling that they are, even practices that they've done, I would tell them you belong at Beth Yeshua, if that's what your background is, if that's who you are. But whether or not we recognize them as Jewish is going to be different. You know what I'm saying? So where do you
now, since we're
think?
Basically pivoting fully into Anusim, we need to wrap up the other one.
Okay.
So what happened with the other one was the wording on the website had changed. She was still very clearly a non-Jewish person wearing a tallis on the homepage. I had a conversation with the rabbi that's mentoring her over our lunch break, and he said, so what exactly is objectionable about the website? That to me was a question that I was like kind of gobsmacked by. I was like, dude, you're not paying attention. Like if you can't look at this website and see like this big photo of her wearing a tali on the homepage. Now, all of the places where it said Hebraic roots were now changed to Jewish roots instead of Hebraic roots. But like you're saying, does that really indicate a real heart change?
Right.
I have more faith in the fact that she's being mentored by him.
Absolutely.
And he has a solid connection to Messianic Jewish life. And so my admonition to him, not really admonishing him, he's older than me, he's my elder, but I was saying, you need to change her website and get her off of there in a talit. She should not be wearing a talit if she's not Jewish. And that signal going out is clearly Hebraic roots still. And so he's like, okay, I will definitely talk with her. We will address this. So she's in relationship with people who are like really committed to the movement. And so after we came back from lunch break, they were going to talk about all the parliamentary rules that would be required to split the list, because it would be a totally different proposal. We'd have to dismiss the other proposal. And I was like, that's not necessary. I've had multiple conversations with the people. I've scoured her website everywhere that it used to say Hebraic roots and now says Jewish roots. And she's in relationship with this rabbi who was literally sitting right back behind me. And I was like, and I know that he's going to hold her accountable to actually like reinforce our values as the UMJC.
Right.
So I withdraw my objection. We're cool. I still have a little bit of an objection in my heart, if I'm being honest, which is those YouTube videos, man. They are...
Right. How do you change those? They're out there, you know.
Right. I mean, you can delete all of them, but like, I don't think that they even would. Those YouTube videos give me a glimpse into the inner working of their community.
Right.
And I can tell from the inner working of their community that they do not line up with union messianic congregations.
So what is the benefit to her? What is the benefit to her community? What is she gaining from this?
Well, I think she's gaining a variety of things. First of all, just going through King's University and being endorsed and having a master's of, divinity and Messianic Jewish studies gives you, street credential, if you will, street cred. And then also like having the UMJC on their website, being affiliated with the UMJC.
That's right.
Gives a certain amount of like normalcy. Like if you're looking at Messianic Judaism for a while, well, and I don't know how careful people are when they search the internet, but if you're looking at it for a while, you can see that the UMJC, the MJAA, and Tikkun are three stable existing organizations that do have, I think we have the most rigorous standards but like there are other standards for the MJAA and also for Tikkun.
And Chosen People.
Well, Chosen People's a ministry.
That's true. They're not a congregational
J for J,
movement.
Jews for Jesus is a ministry. Like they're not necessarily in the business of creating and maintaining communities. And in fact, really in some ways the MJAA has an individual membership. So they're also a little bit different. Tikkun and the UMJC are more about congregational movement and supporting congregations. So that is unique. Anyway, so I do think that there's some benefit to her, but she is in relationship with this rabbi, and I trust this rabbi, and I know that the Spirit's at work. So like, whatever, like it's not my problem. It really isn't, except for when it like begins to reflect badly on the rest of the community that I want to be affiliated with because it means something. That's when it becomes an issue for me. Now, we've talked a lot before about identity. And I think if you don't know, if you're listening to this podcast and haven't seen any of those, you could go and you could listen to some of those. But we believe that if a person could make Aliyah, if they have evidence, physical evidence of a Jewish grandparent, we would consider them Jewish within our community. However, if they have a Jewish grandparent and they have not been raised with any meaningful Jewish identity throughout their childhood, like, so you've got an adult, like some of these that have come into our community. Right. And so we would say, like, for a couple of years, maybe even, come and be part of this community, be discipled, see how to live a Messianic Jewish life before you just jump in and like, I'm a Messianic Jew and like, I'm going to wear this and I'm going to put this on my door frame and like whatever else. It's just like slow down and allow that observance to come at a speed that the family especially can endure. So we want meaningful Jewish acts of attachment with the greater Jewish community. We want a bar bat mitzvah. We want children that are circumcised. We want people to be wearing tzitzit. We want there to be like some wrestling through dietary restrictions and other things like that, because these mean something in greater Jewish identity. That's our halakha. This is where we get into the issues of like okay, first of all, there are the people that are going to say, like, I was baptized in the Jordan River. God told me I'm a Jew, therefore I'm a Jew. I'm sorry. Until God reveals to our entire elder board that you are a Jew, you're not a Jew. Like, and if God wants you to have Jewish evidence of a Jewish grandparent, he can do that, man. He can make that happen.
Right.
But then we have these people that, yes, like are wrestling through, either they came from the former Soviet Union or they came out of the Inquisition, which is such a long time ago. And there are these large communities that are in Brazil, especially with like lots and lots of Messianic Jews. They themselves, though, and this was part of what they shared, they themselves have had to wrestle through, there's pretenders. There's people pretending that are coming in and like pretending to be Jews.
That's
right. Which honestly, the more we have anti-Semitism persecution around the world, the less that will happen. But there are more people like kind of coming and pretending. And so they were like, we need to have a system. There needs to be a way for people to pursue validity of identity rather than just say, my grandma used to light candles on Friday nights, therefore my whole family's Jewish, right? So I didn't go to that session. Well, you went to that session. So what was it like?
Well, it's pretty amazing because I missed the very beginning of it. I was with the kids, but Matheus was a guy who was talking about what has been going on. He said that
to be clear, who is he? Who's Matheus?
He's the regional director. He's a rabbi. I want to say he's a rabbi in Brazil. But
he's also the regional director for all of South America.
For South America, correct. But one of the things he said, which I thought was interesting, intrigued me, was that the Spanish kept good records on the Inquisition. They actually kept a list of those that they ousted and said, you cannot be here. You need to leave because you're not willing to give up your faith and become, our faith. So you need to leave. And they kept the list. So they have a museum where I'm trying to even remember where that museum was, but it's somewhere in South America where they have lists. They show the people that have been expelled from Spain, and even evidently Portugal kept some good records. That it is possible for today, as long as it's been since then. When was the Spanish Inquisition? Was that like 1400? When was that?
Oh, I wish I knew.
I'm sorry. My history is really bad on dates. But
as a history teacher,
who's always taught other things, right? Well, not always, actually. But so he said that because there is this
1478.
1478. Thank you. So because this list exists, if people can bring their tracking of their lives back to any one of those people on the list, that they will give them a document that says they are a descendant of this person who was expelled for being a Jew.
Okay.
So then we have to get into the question of how did they bring themselves up to that point? Did they use DNA? Because DNA shows where you live.
But that wouldn't give you a specific name.
No.
DNA doesn't give you a specific name.
That's exactly right.
So
right. Well, except
they could use DNA to like maybe search for a particular village or something, or a town or something, but they would have to have their family tree.
Yes.
And they would have to go into this museum and look for like that many generations
and
back.
Find the
These
generations.
are the names of our ancestors.
Yeah.
Right. And then they would have to like cross-check that. Now, is that an electronic list? Does that exist as a searchable database?
So. I would assume so. I know that the
he didn't mention that specifically.
If he did, I missed it because I didn't get to be in there for the whole thing. And I suspect he said more about it before I got in there. But to me, the interesting thing was that there might be a path for people. You don't have a ship's manifest. You can't. I mean, they may not even have stories any longer because it's been so many generations. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe people don't even practice anything on a Friday night in their family, that's been a pretty strong factor coming through with anybody I've spoken to who believes that they have ancestry. They talk specifically about a grandparent and what they did on a Friday night and what they did when they went to secret meetings. I'm talking specifically about the Ukraine. And so that's not enough proof. But at the same time, if that can lead, if people can take what information they have, take the names they have, and especially if they came through the Spanish Inquisition, if they can then tie it to those lists, that may be a way for them to regain their identity. I'm not interested in people having an identity they don't have, but if it's been stolen from the horrendous things that have happened in various parts of the world, then that's different. And the people who even went into hiding after the Holocaust and didn't want to admit they're Jewish, and so they're people. So how far are we from that? So in the 40s, I mean, basically 80 years. So how do they prove that when it's important to them?
Well, I mean,
and we want them to know their identity if it exists.
That's grandparents. That's grandparents for my generation.
Still. Right.
So, and there are records of those who were escaping the Holocaust and came across, and records of being part of Jewish community for the ones that came directly to the United States and maybe still had bar and bat mitzvahs and that sort of stuff.
Well, then some of them came right to America and immediately became Catholic because they maybe married a Catholic person. So, but they still are identifiable because they happen to have a ship's manifest.
So for me, I always want to take this to the practical. It's probably because I lead a community,
Absolutely,
right? And so I'm like, so what does this mean for us? Like for me, it means that if a person was in our community and they were coming from this Anusim, like gray area, we would want them to try to take their family tree and take it, I don't know, hopefully that museum is searchable online. It would be really good if we could get like some sort of connection with Matheus, if we could find out if there's a website or something like that that allows people to do these sorts of searches. It would be really helpful because it's not just there in Brazil. It's also here in the United States.
That's right.
We have people who are Brazilian who like move up, or like through Mexico, they came through Brazil, like up into, up into Mexico and then up into the United States. And so like, what do we do with those people, or they came through like Central America up, but like what do we do with those people in a concrete way to help them if they're really trying to pursue this path? And then it is kind of hard because like if these people are really trying to pursue this path really hard and they can't find that name, like, they go back and they can't find that name. What do we do? And we would consider them in our community to not be Jewish. And I'm sure for some that's like incredibly off-putting. It's like, how dare you? Like you like get to be the Jew police. And it's like, well, because there has to be some standard. There has to be like some sort of a line. Now, did you get an idea from him as he was speaking about, I know that there's very large Messianic congregations in Brazil. Like I would assume that most of them are not like second generation. Most of them are like Anusim who have discovered this connection through the museum and then have decided to worship in this way. Did he talk about the practical outworking of that at all, or was it just about the record keeping?
Well, as I say, I didn't get to hear his whole presentation, and I had a feeling that he got into that, but I didn't see it. We will get a file. We will be able to hear that whole conversation. They haven't put it out yet for those of us who attended. So we can have further information on this down the road. But to me, the most important thing was that for a long time, we've talked about the Sephardim and how do they prove who they are and what do we do about that? And remember the Ethiopian Jews, they had to prove, how, they had to show their line and et cetera. And how can we encourage and help them if that's their path without totally diverting ourselves from what it is that we need to be about? But they seem to be drawn to Messianic community because many of them have come into Christianity kind of almost before they found out that, oh, I'm probably actually Jewish. And so they're coming in from that angle. They're not coming in as a Jewish person. Do you understand what I'm saying? So I think one thing we can do is get a link back to Matheus to help our people and see what we can find out about the list and how that can be accessed, and that museum, what can be accessed. But I don't want us to be the ones who are promoting this. I feel like if people come in and they say, this is my background, I want to be able to point them to resources, like, and do that, because I don't want, but in the meantime, if that's where they feel most comfortable to be, I think they should be there with us.
Sure.
I mean, where else?
And it is hard. Like we have multiple people who think of themselves as Jewish and yet don't have evidence. And
They have anecdotal
imagine,
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I would imagine it's a difficult thing for them that we say, okay, but you can't really declare yourself a Jew publicly within our community because that's not the evidence that you have. And we are not going to include you in some of those public acts of Jewish worship. We're not going to call you up for a bar mitzvah later in life, like a b'nai mitzvah. We're not going to ask you to read from Torah. We're not going to have you do an aliyah. We're not going to have you do some of those things.
And frankly, we're not going to do a bris for your children.
Right.
There's
and
other
we're not
parts
to have you
to
wear
that.
a talit. Right. Yeah. And
that's
we're
a
not
tough
going
one.
to consider your children Jewish. But and so it's really, there's a cost there for our community, and it's a hard cost. It is one that is actually dear. It costs something to have those conversations, which I've had to have with people that I really deeply love. I do wonder if this ties back to our former conversation about identity and Hebraic roots. I wonder if our leaders at the national level are willing to have those hard conversations over and over and over again. Because
within their own congregations, right?
Correct.
Right.
Because I think about that one rabbi that you're talking and met every single family as they came in through the door, and he asked if they were Jewish. And he did that for, 3 decades. And because of that, he has a Jewish community. Because of that, he has a Messianic Jewish community, not a Hebraic roots one, not a one law one. And one law can be even like slipperier, more slippy.
The slipperiest.
I don't know. The slipperiest. It can be really, really hard because like if you're unwilling to enforce any sort of distinction within your community, then it almost doesn't matter whether a person calls himself a Jew or a Gentile, because everybody's just going to dress the same and do the same things and engage in the same public acts of worship.
And Josh, think back to your beginnings. Think back to the beginnings of our congregation. And there were times when you did not want to put on a talit because everybody seemed to be wearing them. And the meaning
100%.
was not there. The meaning was not there.
I still have an issue with that. I still have an issue with like wearing a talit or wearing a kippah. Well, for multiple reasons. One is that like for me to wear a kippah out and about in this world means something to other Jewish people.
It does.
Right? It means that like I'm either a modern Orthodox or like there's a very specific halakha that we're keeping in our home, which we are not. And so to me that feels disgenuine. But then, within my own community also, it means something now. Like we have a real clarity now, so it's easier for me to do. But it is still like, as I put on my talit, like I think about my childhood. I think about that confusion. I think about the fact that everybody wore a talit. I think about that the people that dressed the most Jewish were the people who were least Jewish in our community.
Yeah.
And it's something that we can't ever go back to or raise our children in, because that kind of confusion breaks everyone. I think it broke me. It broke my generation, maybe even. That's why so few of my generation are around and leading communities. I think it breaks our children. I think I think part of that lack of integrity and willingness to stand and have a cost for identity, it's costing us something. It's costing us, and not just like how valid we look in the eyes of our other Jewish people who think that we're already not Jewish. It means something. It's kind of vague and nebulous, but it's important.
Well,
it
this
means
is an
that it's
identity
important.
Confused time.
It is.
All kinds of identity, obviously. We're not going to get into the gender and everything else. But God is real clear. His distinction has always been there, and it's proven through the test of time. And so his distinctions for how he made this, and then he made that, and how he did this, and this is to be distinct from this on purpose, for mutual blessing, on purpose. But so to me, that means that even though some people will talk about the one new man, because we all believe in Jesus, those of us who believe in Jesus or Yeshua, we should be like one new man. But then I am always thinking, which man are we to be? Are we like in a marriage? You're to become an echad. Which one of you do you become? You don't. You each are still unique in that coming together. And God has purposes for that. And God has purposes for Gentiles in this movement even. I think it's a rare person, but there are people. And of course, then there's all the mixed marriages where a Gentile is half of that marriage. And they, I think, really need our attention to help them understand the importance of that for themselves and for their children. And frankly, it's all about the generations. I love it that Nathan calls that camp Orlador. It's all about passing from generation to generation. If we cannot do that, who are we? What are we? We're a flash in the pan, you know.
That's right.
And then back to what it is that we're supposed to be doing. What's our calling? And ours is to help people understand who they are, what it means to God, and to walk in that, whatever that means. Hopefully, it means to get them back to the land. I mean, you know, you've tried to get to the land. You don't know, though, what it might have done. The fact that your family tried to make Aliyah, the fact that it became a court case, you have no idea how much that may have impacted future change, you know, so that maybe the change can go forward eventually, you know, that Messianics can go back to the land.
Okay, I think we're back. We're having tech issues. I have a MacBook Pro from 2012, which is, you know, it's alive. It's still working, sort of. But yeah, you were right in the middle of saying something, Bubby. So I'm just going to let you wrap it up, and then we'll conclude.
Well, I just wanted to say that I'm not Jewish, and having married a Jewish man who became a rabbi, I'm very sympathetic to the cause for people when they want to understand where they're from, even if, whether it's Jewish or whatever. Identity is a huge, big deal, and it's important to God, it's important to us. But I know as a congregation, we don't have the resources to help people find that out. If we can offer them places where they can go, if we can get a way to contact Matheus, etc., that museum that he spoke of, that I believe he said was in Brazil, but if we can help people in that way and give them a resource, fine. But we need to be about the business of taking care of those we already have, many of whom are in mixed marriages, which has its own specific needs. And but I definitely am sympathetic to it. I can't, having discovered some of my identity more recently that I didn't know about, it was just like, it's important. It's important to know where you came from. It's important to know your people and to participate in whatever your people should be participating in. So
totally. I agree. That's a good way to wrap it up. Thank you, everybody, for being with us today. Sorry about our tech issues. We are actually hoping to have another podcast really soon. We're hoping to interview a rabbi who's on the executive board. Is it the board? Is that what it's called? The executive board of the UMJC, about his experience within his own Messianic congregation and just like a little bit of his his life, and sharing a little bit of his life with us. So I hope you're excited for that.
And his wife. The two of them.
They're both going to be on, which will be great. So hopefully that'll be really soon. And then school's going to start up. Oh, man, really soon. So we're definitely going to have to figure out when my preps are going to be and when we could try to record every other week. But that's our desire for this second season, is to have a couple of podcasts a month. That's our desire. So if you want to see us once again, instead of just listen to us, you can check us out on YouTube, Beth Yeshua SAC, S-A-C. Go to bethyeshua.org. That's our website. You can also find us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, wherever you find your podcasts. So thanks, Mom. I appreciate the conversation today.
Okay, it was great. Thank you, dear.
All
dear.
Right, bye-bye. I know.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can always visit bethyeshua.org for more.